Okay, welcome. The topic we'll be discussing in today's class is operating system structure. So last class we have discussed about different types of processor, single general purpose processor, multiprocessor, different types of multiprocessor, asymmetric multiprocessor, symmetric multiprocessor, multi-chip multiprocessor, multi-core processor, and also we have discussed about clustering systems, asymmetric clustering, symmetric clustering, etc. So the topic we'll be discussing in today's class is operating system structure. So to begin with, we'll be discussing two types of operating systems. One is a multi-programming system, which is otherwise called as batch system, and the other one is a time sharing system, which is otherwise called as multitasking system. So in a multi-programming system or in a batch system, what happens in the sense, you will be having a big server, or you will be having a big server computer, and this computer is also called as batch system, and jobs will be submitted to the particular server or the batch system, and the operating system will assign any one particular job to the CPU or the central processing unit, and the CPU will keep executing that particular job. The CPU will keep executing that particular job as long as there is no IO operation is demanded by the job. Okay, if there is an IO operation, if there is any input output operation, in the sense, the job may want to write something to the disk, or it may want to print something to the printer, or it may have to take user input. All these are time consuming operations. So in such case, what will happen in the sense, the operating system, so the processor will be free during that time. So the operating system will switch the processor from the current job to some other job. Okay. So this kind of system is called as multi-programming or batch system. That is initially the operating system will be assigned to a particular job, and it will be keep executing that job as long as there is no IO request. Whenever there is an IO request, the operating system will switch the particular CPU from that job to another job. Okay, so here the switching of the processor or CPU is controlled only by the operating system, and switching happens only when there is an IO request. In no other cases, the processor will switch to another job. If such a system is called as multi-programming or batch system. The next concept is time sharing or a multitasking system. A time sharing or a multitasking system is a logical extension of multi-programming. That is, this is also one type of multi-programming. Basically, this is also one type of multi-programming. But here, the CPU can switch from one job to another job based on user interaction also. That is, here the switching of CPU from one job to another job is not only controlled by operating system. Based on the user interaction also, the CPU may get switched from one job to another job. Okay, so these are highly interactive systems, and this system expects a very less response time, typically less than 1 second. What is response time? Response time in the sense, the time duration between the user input and how much time does it take to reflect in the computer. So that is called as response time. Say for example, now if I am talking at this particular second, I want it to reach immediately the next second to you. Okay, if it comes to you after 5 minutes or something, that is not a very great response time. Okay, or if I type something in the keyboard, say I type BAT, BAT, then I want it to see in the word processor or in the notepad immediately within a second. So that is called as response time. If I type bat now and if it appears after 10 seconds, then that will not give a good user experience. Okay. So or if I move the mouse towards left, then I want to see the mouse pointer to get moved immediately, right at that moment. Okay, or with a little delay which a user cannot sense. If I move the mouse cursor to the left now and if it is getting moved after 10 seconds, then that will not give a satisfactory performance. So these kind of systems demand a high response time. Okay, and here what happens in the sense, uh, so the basic difference between multi-programming and time sharing system is, in a multi-programming system the processor or the CPU will be switched from one job to another job only by the CPU and only because for IO operation. Whereas in a time sharing system, the CPU may get switched from one job to another job because of user interaction or because of the or sometimes operating system may also decide that the CPU should be switched from one job to another job. Okay, so let us try to understand with an small example. So let us assume you have a server computer and this server computer has a powerful CPU to this, and say three users are connected to this particular computer through different uh, terminals. Terminal means it is a dummy, we call it as dummy terminal which will not have any processor. Okay, so there is a user 1 and there is user 2. Okay, and there is user 3. All these three were sharing this CPU. So it means that the CPU is time shared between different users. So this system is called as a time sharing system. The CPU is time shared between different users. So this kind of systems is called as time sharing system. So the operating system which is running in this server may decide that the CPU will be executing the job of user 1 for 10 millisecond, and it may execute the job of user 2 for 8 millisecond, and it may execute the job of user 3 for 12 milliseconds, and each of the user may be executing highly interactive programs. For example, user 1 may be running a game program. Okay, user 2 may be, so user 1 may be running a game program, user 2 may be running a Java application, and uh, user 3 may be running say a spreadsheet. Okay, so all are using some interactive programs, and CPU defines its own switching process. That is, it will execute user 1 for some time, user 2 for sometimes, and user 3 for sometimes. But in addition to that, switching may also happen depending on the user input. Say for example, currently CPU is executing user 3's process, the spreadsheet. So it has executed for 4 milliseconds. And after 4 milliseconds, there is an IO operation. So IO operation in the sense it is expecting an user input. So as long as the user does not give the input, there is nothing for the CPU to do. So CPU is now waiting. Okay. So now if there is a demand from user 2, say user 2 is pressing a key or moving his mouse or moving his joystick, then that should be reflected in the screen. So there is an interaction expected from the user. So immediately what the operating system will do, in the sense operating system will switch the processor from user 3 to user 2. Okay, so that is the overall concept. Here processor will get, or the CPU will get switched from one job to another job, either because of user interaction or because of the decision of the operating system. Okay, so this concept of switching the operating system is called as CPU scheduling. So which process should get the CPU or which user should currently get the CPU, that is called as CPU scheduling. Okay, and also there is something called as swapping. So what is meant by swapping? Swapping means sometimes what happens in the sense, you may want to execute a program but you may not be having sufficient capacity of memory in your main memory. Okay. Say for example, currently I have 1 GB of free space in the main memory. Okay. But I want to execute a program which is of 2 GB. I want to execute a program which is of 2 GB. The program size is 2 GB, but my memory capacity is only 1 GB. In that case, what happens in the sense, the operating system will bring the first 1 GB into memory. So the program size is 2 GB. The first 1 GB will be brought to the memory by the operating system. Okay. And the CPU will be using this first 1 GB and it will be performing the task. Okay. So CPU may create any instruction. Any instruction may come from the CPU and it may demand any data. The data may be available either within the 1 GB or it may go beyond the 1 GB. Okay. So if whatever the data the CPU requests, if it is within this particular 1 GB, it will access it. But say the CPU is requesting some information, but that is not a part of this particular 1 GB memory, then what happens in the sense, the remaining 1 GB which is present in the hard disk, the remaining 1 GB which is present in the hard disk, that will be swapped with this content. That is currently whatever the 1 GB content available in the main memory, that will be moved to hard disk or secondary storage device, and the other 1 GB will be brought back to main memory so that the CPU can access the relevant content. This concept is called as swapping. Similarly, there is another interesting concept called virtual memory. So what is meant by virtual memory? Virtual memory, see, virtual memory and swapping are related concepts. So virtual memory gives a feeling to the user as if the computer is having an unlimited memory. Virtual memory gives a feeling to the user as if the computer is having an unlimited memory. It is one form of abstraction. Okay. Assume that you want to load a 3 GB program into the main memory. Okay. The program size is 3 GB. But let us assume the RAM size is only 1 GB. The RAM size is only 1 GB. So the 3 GB program cannot be loaded in the memory of 1 GB. Okay, but who knows this? Who knows that there is only 1 GB memory? You don't have 3 GB memory. Only operating system knows. The user does not know anything about this. The user program who is requesting the CPU to load this particular 3 GB program, he does not know about your system. How much memory free, how much free space is available, all these things he does not know. So what the operating system does in the sense, operating system will create an an and logical view of memory to the user. Okay, the logical view of memory, so the user cannot be able to see your real physical memory. Rather operating system will give a logical view of the memory, and the user will feel as if there is 3 GB space available. Okay, as if there is a 3 GB space available. So user will be given an impression as if the entire 3 GB file is loaded into memory. But in reality, that is not the case. Only 1 GB will be loaded into main memory and remaining 2 GB will be residing in the hard disk. But only OS will be knowing this. And OS will not inform this to the user program. Rather, operating system will give a logical view to the user that entire 3 GB is loaded. And also for this logical view, the operating system will give some addressing. So the addressing will start from 0 to, okay, 3000 what? 1024 is okay, 1024, 1048, 3072. So 3072 is 3 GB. So it will address from 0 to 3072 locations. Okay. Okay, like that. If each location is 1 MB, it will like that. It will address, right. Whereas this address is called as logical addressing. This is not your real addressing. This is called as logical addressing. The real addressing is available in the main memory, which is called as physical memory. Your main memory capacity is only 1 GB. So but the user don't know about this. User will be only seeing the logical memory. Based on the logical memory, user will give a request. And whenever a request comes, the operating system will first convert the logical address to physical address. Whatever the logical address, it will convert to a physical address, and it will check whether the physical address is within the whether the physical address is within the real physical memory or not. If it is within this memory, then that particular content it will retrieve and it will give it to the particular user. Okay. If the logical address, if it converts to a physical address, and if that address is not a part of this 1 GB, then again it will swap. It will move this 1 GB to hard disk. It will bring the next 1 GB and it will check. Okay. Or whichever the 1 GB refers to that particular physical address, that will be brought back. Okay. So this concept is called as virtual memory. We'll be discussing about this detail in a separate topic by the name virtual memory. But as of now, you just understand that virtual memory in the sense user will be given a feeling as if you have an unlimited memory. Okay. And this memory will be given a different addressing, which is called as logical addressing, and user will be referring to the content using logical addressing, and the operating system will convert every logical address to physical address, and it will check whether that particular data is available in that respective physical address or not, or whether the particular physical address is within that main memory content or not. If it is there, it will retrieve and give. Otherwise, it will perform swapping. So this concept is called as virtual memory. Okay. The next thing we'll be discussing is fine. Let us stop here for okay, just I will complete with this. So here you can see the memory layout of a multi-programming system. So this is a typical memory layout of a multi-programming system. So what you are seeing here is there is a main memory, and the main memory is divided into multiple pods. Okay, the main memory is divided into multiple pods. At one pod there is operating system, and then there is some jobs are residing. There are four jobs: job 1, job 2, job 3, and job 4. And here you have CPU. Now the CPU will context switch between these jobs. Okay, that is, CPU may be executing job 1 for 10 milliseconds, then it may switch to job 2 and it may execute job 2 for some times, and then it may execute job 3 for some time, and then it may execute job 4 for some time. So this is how normally a multi-programming system works. Okay, fine. So we'll stop here for today's session, and we will continue further in the next session. Thank you.